This is the Nobel Podcast, where we talk about how to optimize your technology, life, and mind. We're joined by special operations veterans, entrepreneurs, investors, and others who have overcome difficulty to make it to the top of their craft by staying in the fight.
Welcome to the Nobel Podcast. Today, it is my honor to take a complete total legend from the FBI, Ed Mireles. They write books about you. You've written books. You are taught to new agents. Welcome to the Nobel Podcast.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Rob. It's a pleasure to be here. And you know what, though? I think my reputation is overstated. I'm just a regular guy.
So my brother is an agent. When I said that I'd have the opportunity to talk to you, he said, I had the honor to shake your hand when he went through Quantico. That Quantico, a lot of the lessons that you learned in real life are now every agent that has gone through subsequently is taught the lessons that you learned, and that makes them better agents today. So
right.
You can be humble about it, but you are an absolute FBI legend. So let's get into it. Where'd you grow up?
Well, I was born in Alice, Texas, which is somewhere around between San Antonio and Corpus Christi, Texas, on the coast. And I lived there for 6 years, and then my dad got a job in another town. So we moved to an area called Beeville, B-E-E-ville. And people have always asked me, hey, do they have a lot of bees there? I mean, that's a logical question. But no, it was named after a war between Texas and Mexico. Colonel B, okay, he settled in that area, and he was a pretty good legend himself down in Texas, So just became, hey, let's go to B's place. B became Beeville, so that's where I grew up, And I had a typical life, I was born in the 50s. I'm a product of the 50s. I know that probably seems like, ancient history to some of your listeners, but I mean, nuclear family, mother, father, I had a brother and two sisters, school, church, hard work, and I tell people, I said, hey, I had no idea what air conditioning was until I was 18,
In Texas.
I mean, we lived in South Texas with no AC, so it makes hardy people, to say the least, So, I mean, I had a great upbringing. I mean, family, everything was family and dedication to work and civic duty. I mean, at the time when I was a young kid, I didn't know what civic duty was, but it was basically, do the right thing always, So, and then Vietnam was going on at the same time. And so some of my uncles and cousins had been called to serve. As it turned out, I got a draft notice like in 1971. And I'm thinking, well, Jesus, I got to go, and I just getting ready to graduate from high school. Yeah. So I said, you know what, forget this. I'm gonna follow in my uncles and cousins' footsteps because they were all Marines. So I said, well, I went down there and enlisted in the Marines, so, and then, my tie came up for, reporting, and I reported in September 71 and went to boot camp in San Diego. That's the first time I'd ever been, out of the little podunk town, and I tell you, San Diego is like Paris to me. It's like, holy moly, look at this place, So then I went to boot camp, and I had the absolute living crap beat out of me, so that was an awakening.
So leading into that, the lifestyle that led to that, you said you learned civic duty, but you had family members that served. You saw a call to service at that time.
Right.
Were you into sports growing up? Were you a good kid, a bad kid? Did you ever get into trouble?
Well, it depends on who you ask, so I probably had a checkered background, No, but I mean, when I think about it, our school was, I don't want to say gangs, but groups. You had the jocks. I was one of the jocks. And then you had the cowboys because we're in Texas. Okay. And then you had the, I don't even know what they weren't hippies back then, but they were like the surfers. Oh, that's what it was. The surfer boys, So you had the surfers, the cowboys and the jocks, So, I was part of the jock because I played football, basketball, ran track. I mean, there was always a season for something, and then, I found out real quick that I wasn't a basketball player, So
why is that?
Because I was just totally uncoordinated, Plus, I wasn't tall. I mean, I'm 6 feet tall, but man, I was going up against some 6'4", 6'6" kids, man. It's like, holy moly, man. I mean, they're tough to compete against, So I stuck to track and football.
What position did you play at football?
I was a defensive end. I tell you what, I love that position, man. It was just great. I mean, I was almost like a linebacker. You know how linebackers can float back and forth, Speaking of linebackers, one of my heroes was Dick Butkus from the Chicago Bears. What a bruiser that guy.
Mean as could be.
I tell you what, though, I mean, I fashioned myself after Dick Butkus, but I was just a skinny 150-pound kid.
Very cool. So you like smashing people?
Oh yeah, but I tell you what though, we played some teams. I thought I was pretty tough. When I graduated from high school, I was 165, and I'm telling you, Rob, we would go to some of these small towns in South Texas. Holy moly, man, we ran across some bruisers. I mean, good old farm boys. I mean, I'm talking like I was about 6 feet tall, 160. I ran across some big, strong, strapping, hard-working farm boys that were like 6'4", weighed 220 pounds. They knocked the bejesus out of me, So they came from good stock. I think they were German or Polish or something from that part of Texas, and they just not. I mean, we always lost to them, because we just, they outweighed us like by 30%, So.
Farm work makes tough people, so that's tough to compete with.
Yeah.
So you grew up playing sports. You ended up in the Marine Corps. Were you 18 when you went in the Marines?
Yeah, I was 18. Yeah, like I said, I got a draft notice. Back then, I don't know whether people know what the draft is, but back then, they would call you up. Uncle Sam would send you a letter. Greetings to all who shall see these presents. We are offering Mr. Mireles a 4-year paid vacation. If you don't show up, we'll come find you. So, and I'm thinking, okay, I better show up.
Did you get on an airplane to fly to San Diego?
Yeah, that's my first time ever on an airplane. It was just fantastic. Like I said, I mean, it's like a little country hick boy, leaving the small town, going to the big city. When I got to San Diego, I thought, man, I've been to town and seen the elephant, man. This is pretty cool, pretty cool.
It's interesting. I think for a lot of people going to boot camp, that's their first time on an airplane. Even today, that still occurs when I went to boot camp.
Oh no! You know what? Kids today are spoiled. My kids, I mean, they were on an airplane when they were 6. I mean, it's like they flew all over with us. So they're absolutely spoiled, rotten kids. So.
So what was your Marine experience like?
It was tense. I had no idea. 'Cause everything was geared towards training for the Vietnam War. And everything. Like a good instructors. They were trying to give you all. All their knowledge, the benefit of their experience and stuff like that to keep you alive. I mean, boot camp was boot camp. They take raw material and they like taking a piece of iron ore and you heat it up and you melt it and then you form it into whatever you want to form it into. I don't want to sound cliche-ish, but they were forming us into swords, so, but it was tough, and then after boot camp, I think boot camp was like 8, 10, 12 weeks. It's been so long. It's been like 60 years, After boot camp, I went to Camp Pendleton for advanced infantry training. That was another few weeks there, and that was great to me. I mean, we were living in crappy conditions. We were living. I don't know if your listeners know what a Quonset hut is. Okay, a Quonset hut is a house that's a little aluminum or wood thing that's built like this. And we lived in Quonset huts that were built during World War II. So you can imagine the maintenance. It was hot in the summer and cold in the winter. But I thought it was great. Because I was from a flat, Texas, coastal plain, and we were in mountains. I mean, I thought that was super, man. I mean, some of the mountains in California are, they're not, forest mountains or, like alpine, Switzerland mountains, but they're just like kind of desert mountains. Either way, I mean, I thought it was great. I mean, to me, the highest thing I ever saw was like a bridge going over a river or something like that, so, but I loved it. But, I mean, on the flip side, they did beat the crap out of us, with training. We'd be out there 12, 16 hours a day, so, and then I got assigned to an MOS, military operational skill. And I couldn't believe that, everybody was going to the Marine Corps. There's a 0311, 0311, 0311, which is a grunt, you're a basic rifleman. And I got to be a 0849 and I'm thinking, what the hell is a 0849? And I was told that I was going to be a forward observer for naval gunfire. And I'm thinking, I don't know how the heck I got that job. Okay. I mean, I had no technical experience, no engineering background, I must have done something right on my end. You have to have these tests that you take, Of course, you take them at 4 a.m. with 1 hour of sleep, being yelled at by a sergeant, you're trying to take a test that's going to decide your career, and I must have done well because I wasn't an infantryman, even though we're all infantrymen. So they sent me to Naval Gunfire School, which was, of all places, and was in San Diego. I spent like 8 or 12 weeks in San Diego at a Navy base. I'm telling you, what, going from a Marine Corps base to a Navy base, it's like going from the Sahara, to Switzerland. I hated to leave the Navy base because they actually had beds, and we were two troops to a room. The chow hall was great. Everybody was polite, and, it's like, wow, but plus, the training was pretty cool too. We learned everything about azimuths, compass readings, true north, grid north, and magnetic north, all kinds of different stuff, so. And then, we were on ships, and the best part of it all was we were on the same base that the Navy SEALs training. And I'm telling you, man, I have nothing but the highest regard for those guys, man. I mean, because they were, every time I saw them, they were soaking wet, and I was just glad to be sleeping in a decent bed, So the best part of that school was the last 2 or 3 weeks, they took us out to an island I think it's off of Los Angeles.
San Clemente Island.
San Clemente Island. And it's nothing but an island that the Navy and the Air Force used for bombing, and shooting. We used to go out there. We used to call in naval gunfire, on various targets. It was great. It was a hoot, So we'd go out there for 3 or 4 days at a time, and then come back and do some paperwork, some book learning. And then we'd go back the next week. That was great. So I managed to pass it, and in all honesty, I don't remember how I was ranked in the class. I mean, I was just so excited, that I was doing it, I don't know whether I was first in the class or last in the class, so, but I was, I was a certified forward observer, so. And then in my career as a forward observer, we went to 29 Palms, which is a Marine Corps base in the desert in Southern California. It's like next to the Mojave Desert, I guess. And we trained in calling in artillery because that's a little bit different than naval gunfire. Artillery, it's, stationary on land and stuff like that. Navy ships are floating around, bobbing and weaving and stuff like that, So it's a little bit different. But again, that was a hoot. We'd be out there in the desert, calling in, explosives,
So as you're doing all this training, did you use it operationally? Did you go to Vietnam?
That's the interesting question. And that's, I look back on that, and I'm thinking, wow, it's almost like a miracle because, once I had graduated from the Naval Gunfire School, my unit, I was assigned to the 3rd Battalion, 11th Marines, 1st Marine Division. We got orders, I think it was January, 1972 to go to Vietnam. So we were actually, we were in the process of moving all the gear from our base at Camp Pendleton, moving it to San Diego to put on ships. Okay. And as you can well imagine, any movement of heavy equipment like that, cannons, artillery, food, ammo, that type of stuff is a real big logistical issue, So I was driving some vehicles from Camp Pendleton to San Diego. And we had to stay on the Navy base in San Diego. We actually slept in our Jeeps, because I said, hey, you guys have to watch the equipment. We can't just leave it here, So we did that I was there for about 3 or 4 or 5 days, and then all of a sudden the sergeant comes back and says, okay, he called us some kind words, some nicknames, some pet names.
The okay, Marine Corps is known to be very kind in their nicknames.
Yeah, it's a very homey organization. Anyway, he said, stop what you're doing, get it off the ships and put it back. He said, we're taking it off and we're going back to Camp Pendleton. And everybody looked at him like he had 2 heads, So what? We just spent like 3 or 4 or 5 days, loading this stuff up. And I said, well, it doesn't matter. The president has canceled the war. And I said, what? He said, listen, knucklehead, just do what I tell you to do, but the war, for us, he said, the war is over. And I'm thinking, what? And then it wasn't until later that I found out that President Nixon, the honorable President Nixon, I know a lot of people hate him, but he is honorable President Nixon to me. And the honorable Henry Kissinger had been at the Paris peace talks with the Vietnamese, and they had come to some agreement, some accord to end the war. So they had signed it in the beginning of the year or at the end of the previous year. I forget what it was. So they were not sending any troops to Vietnam anymore. They were downsizing. They were calling everybody back. I had my foot on the step to the ship to leave, so, but they canceled it. So we went back to Camp Pendleton, and I'm thinking, okay, I've got 3.5 years left in my tour of duty. What the hell's going to happen, And, I don't know have you ever been in the service?
So I was in the SEAL teams. So I was in the SEAL teams for just under 10 years. So familiar with a lot of that.
You know that there are no idle hands in the military.
No,
if you're not doing something, man, someone's going to find some shit for you to do. So it was not. I wasn't looking forward to that. So one morning our CO comes out to formation. It was like 0800, I think it was, and he made an announcement. He says, "Okay." He said, the Marine Security Guard Battalion is looking for volunteers to attend their school. And I'm sitting in formation parade rest. I'm like, oh, God, what the hell? So he said, and after reviewing the files of all the, Marines in the platoon, he said, there are only 2 people qualified to apply. And he said, number 1, you cannot have an arrest record, and everybody starts snickering. He said, and number 2, he said, you've got to have 3 years or more on your tour of duty. So he said, there's only 2 Marines here that are qualified. He said, Corporal so-and-so and Private Mireles. I said, he said, see me after formation. And I'm thinking, what the hell? So I went to see the CO, and I had no idea. Really had no clue, so the corporal went before me, and he went in for like 5 seconds and came out. He said he wanted nothing to do with it because he was, married or something like that. And you can't be married, when you go on that program, So I went in, and the CO said, okay, he says, what do you think? I said, sir, I have no idea what you're talking about. Can you tell me what the hell this is? I said, okay, well, it's a security guard battalion or Marines that guard the embassies around the world. I'm thinking, well, that piqued my interest. It's like, sounds pretty cool. Because I had seen the movie. I don't know if you remember the old days, 55 Days at Peking, the old movie, where the Marines and the Army guys were in China, and then the Boxers rebelled in 1900 or 1901.
I'm aware of it. I've not seen the movie.
Yeah, it's like a 55-year-old movie. Yeah. But anyway, I saw the 55 Days at Peking. That was the name of the movie. And I thought that was pretty cool, man. You had the Army, you had the Marines, you had Germans and Brits and everybody else. They were forming a big like an Alamo basically in the downtown. Now is Beijing. So it looked pretty cool. And they were talking about, hey, we have to protect the embassies. We have to protect the, I'm thinking, that's the only thing I knew about embassies, So I said, hey, that sounds pretty cool. I said, sir, what do you think? I asked him point blank. I said, what do you think? You think it's a good deal? He said, for a young man like you, he said, yeah, I think it would be a good deal. I said, okay, sir, sign me up. And like within 30 days, man, I was in Washington, D.C. So.
Very cool.
So that was pretty cool. And I went through the school, and the school was about, 2 months long, 2.5, 3 months. We started out with 120 applicants. And by graduation time, we were down to 60. Because they really cut you out, man. They start doing, that was my first experience with a background check, like a government, hey, you have to get a secret. And I'm sure you probably had, TSSCI, X-ray, levels, and I didn't know this, but that's what was being done, to my background. And, and being a little shit kid from South Texas, never done anything. I was pretty, so they said I passed, and then, it came time to being assigned to a post. Everybody was all excited. And the guys in front of me, they said, oh, Lance Corporal Smith, you're going to, Helsinki, Finland. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'd love to go to Finland, Of course, I had, visions of all these blonde, tall beauties, and then, Private Smith, you're going to Paris, France, and I think, oh, God, and then they have all these, you're going to Tokyo and you're going to, Australia. I forget what the capital of Australia was, and I'm thinking, and there's, Lance Corporal Mireles, you're going to Sofia, Bulgaria. And I'm thinking, what? I said, sir, and I had no clue, and back then you didn't have Google, so I had to go to a globe, one of those old globes. And I said, where the hell is this place? I had no idea where to look for it. And then the sergeant came over and said, right here, knucklehead. So I said, that's in the Eastern Bloc. He said, yep. He said, that's why only the special, the best, the old cliche, the best of the best only. I'm thinking, yeah, right. They probably ran out of good posts, and I ended up with the crap post, So we had an extra briefing because it was, what's the height of the Cold War, and it was kind of exciting. It was also, kind of, scary too, because that's like, Jesus, the way they made it sound, it's like, man, you're really going into like almost like a, guerrilla warfare, combat, because, and it really, in all seriousness, it really was, every time we left the embassy, the Marines slept in the embassy, worked in the embassy, ate in the embassy, because we had to be there 24/7, and we're always on alert, so. And then they had special security precautions, for people trying to break into the embassy, and then also for listening devices, the typical, counterintelligence, spy versus spy stuff, But it wasn't bad. After a while, they got a little bit boring. I'd sleep and we'd sleep on the top floor, get dressed, work out or whatever, have breakfast. Then you walk down 2 floors and you're on your post, So, you could literally live there for 365 days and not never leave the building,
So you went from loading a ship and unloading a ship, going to Vietnam, not going to Vietnam, and then going to a part of the world that you didn't even ever imagine, in a job that you never thought that existed, in the span of a few months, really. Maybe a year.
Probably like 3 or 4 months, it's like, holy, oh yeah. But you know what though, let me tell you about Bulgaria. I think when I think back, because this really was the height of the Cold War, the word that comes to mind as to how to describe Sofia, Bulgaria, was the one word, bleak. It was a bleak place. Okay. The people, there was no color. Everything they wore was like wool, and it was like brown or black or gray, and I used to look at their clothes in the summer. Everybody was wearing wool pants, or I said, dudes, how can you wear wool and freaking when it's 80 degrees outside? They had nothing else. Whenever the few tourists that were there, they used to have a lot of Brits, and a lot of Western European tourists come in. Bulgarians would go up to you and literally say, hey, I want to buy your blue jeans. It's like, what? I'll buy your blue jeans, and I don't even know what blue jeans were like back then. I used to wear Levi's all the time, like $8 for a pair of blue jeans at the time. Man, they said, I'll give you $100 for your jeans, and we never did it because, you never know when you're being set out, because there were some real people, some real Bulgarians that wanted your blue jeans, or if you wore like a polo shirt, some weird color, like anything but gray, so people would come up to you and offer to buy your clothes off of you, so.
It's interesting from the Soviet era. Like, these are all stereotypes that I've heard and I've never experienced that. I've never seen that place. I've never led that life. That's interesting that you were there at exactly the time when that was
1972. That was in Sofia, and I'm telling you, it was bleak. They made no bones about it. The military, they wore gray. That was their color uniforms with gray, gray and red hats. Practically everywhere you went, they were carrying the old submachine guns. I don't even know what. I know they weren't H&Ks back then, So, but people were just like, they were like sad. It's like just like woe is me. So every time we left the embassy, literally, there's a building across the street from the embassy. On the second floor, there was an open window up there. There was somebody watching in front of the embassy 24/7. Okay, they were just in your face about it. And then every time we left the embassy, anybody left the embassy, they were being followed. I mean, and they weren't discreet. It was like in your face, you'd be followed by 2 guys, 4 guys, depending on where you're going.
Like in Rocky 4?
Yeah.
Did you ever see Rocky 4 where they follow him everywhere while he's training?
Yeah.
They get their car stuck and it's super overt as he's training.
I mean, it's just weird, I'm thinking, okay, you knew no one was going to mug you, unless they mugged you. No, but I spent the year there, and that was really a learning experience. You know what? Let me say this for your audience. I see Americans right now, and I've seen Americans, over the past 40 or 50 years, that will tell you or go on TV or whatever that communism is the best system, yay for communism, And I hear these morons on TV now. They have no freaking idea, no freaking clue how communism worked. I mean, people were just bleak, sad, people, and you had vegetables and fruits in the summer. And when winter came, you had nothing. There was nothing. Okay. And you had to buy and prepare for, it was almost like I guess we call them preppers now. People had to plan how they were going to live through the winter. Okay. Because, we were lucky. We were, the embassy we had the diplomatic store. You could walk in there and buy, caviar and chocolates and champagnes. But the Bulgarians, they would be outside looking in, it's like, hey, they weren't diplomatic corps, so they would be out there looking at you like, what the heck, So it was bleak. So these morons out there, you have no clue. You wouldn't last a week. You wouldn't last a week in their program. You'd be in some gulag someplace.
It's tough to not have lived an experience and then be an advocate for something. And, I've been to a few places in the world, but certainly not everywhere. Yeah. But the lifestyle in, Iraq and Afghanistan was surprising. I have a different take of how the world is based on places that I've been.
Well, you know what, though? I spent 4 years in Iraq, as a contract employee. I tell you what, there's another happy place. I did a year in Fallujah with the Marines. Happy, joy. It's like holy Jesus.
It's different.
I did 3 years with 10th Mountain and a couple other units in Baghdad, and then with the U.S. Embassy.
What years were those?
I was there between 2008 and 2012.
Oh well.
What do they say? Hearts and minds.
They did say that. It's a different value of life. It's a different value of a lot of different things that I think if you were to see it face to face, you wouldn't understand it. Certainly in Afghanistan, to me, more than Iraq that I saw, human life was not valued remotely in the same way.
Well, I don't know whether I was lucky or unlucky. When I was originally got the job in 2008, I said, hey, I don't want to go to Iraq. I want to go to Afghanistan because I knew Iraq was, in my mind, winding down. Okay. They'll be out of there in a year and a half, 2 years. And I'm thinking Afghanistan is just kicking up, so I wanted to go there. And they said, nah, we don't need you in Afghanistan. We need you in Iraq. I'm thinking, okay. So as it turned out, I ended up doing 4 years there. But you're right, though. The value systems there, people here is like, I have freedoms. You can't do that to me. It's like, dude, you have no idea. It's like in Bulgaria and Fallujah, you're lucky you're breathing.
So it's interesting that you went to go chase more action later in your life. Let's move on now. So you had a very interesting experience in the Marine Corps. What led you to the next? What led you to go to the agency or to the bureau rather?
That's an interesting story in itself, Rob. Because when I as a reward, that's the way the Marine Corps did it. And I'm surprised they were even thinking that far ahead, but as a reward for you doing a 1 year hardship in an Eastern Bloc country, your second post, you would only do a year. They wouldn't let you do 2 years because you're isolated. The only people you saw were your fellow Marines and the embassy staff. You weren't allowed to fraternize. You couldn't fraternize with any Bulgarians, especially girls. It's like, forget about it, And the Bulgarians were always throwing girls at us, It's like, and we knew it was a setup, It's like, hey, you know what? Fine, thank you. So after a year, the Marines get transferred out. I was rewarded by being sent to this god awful place called Madrid, Spain. Oh man, it's like, don't throw me in the briar patch, I I did 2 years of service in Madrid, and then I met my first wife in Madrid. So I ended up living in Madrid for 5 years. Man, if there's one country in the world besides the U.S. that I would move to, it would be Spain. So.
When I was in college, I did a study abroad just outside of Madrid. So I lived there for 6 months, and I'm enamored with Spain. I love it.
Oh yeah, I mean, imagine me, 5 years, man. I went every city. And in Madrid, I can guarantee you, I don't think there is one single bar that I missed in Madrid after 5 years. And you know what? It was my mission to reconnoiter every single bar in Madrid.
That's good work if you can get it. Where the best tapas are. No, the wine is better here.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. So anyway, after I met my first wife, I got out of the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps, I asked for an overseas discharge. So I was discharged overseas because I was married to the American lady that I married. And at the embassy, in certain embassies, they have a position called legal attachés. And I had no idea what a legal attaché was. I thought it would be an attorney, but it ends up being that the legal attaché is an FBI agent. So the FBI, there was one FBI agent assigned to the embassy. He covered Madrid, Portugal, and Morocco. That was his road trip. Okay. So I got to know him, as like, yes, sir, that when I was in uniform. And his name was Jerry. We got to be kind of friends. I was always intimidated by him because I'm thinking, oh man, he's the G man. He's the big G, but we got to be friends, and when I was in my junior year, I started going to school there at the University of Maryland, their overseas campus and stuff. So I was in my junior year. He pulls me aside and said, hey, how far are you from graduating? I said, I've got one more year. He said, hey, what are you going to do when you graduate? I said, well, I thought when I get back to the States, I said, I want to be a police officer. He said, really? I said, yeah. And he said, well, have you ever considered a career in the FBI? And I looked at him and I said, FBI? I said, Jerry, I don't think I'd qualify. He said, I thought you had to be an attorney or an accountant. I mean, that really was my mindset, an attorney or an accountant, the old Ephraim Zimbalist Jr., days, from TV and stuff. So he said, no, it's definitely, those are two big programs that the FBI hires. They hire attorneys, they hire accountants, but he said, we hire engineers, we hire scientists, we hire linguists, we hire all different kinds of people, he said. So I looked at him and said, so where would I fit in? He said, you would fit in 2 categories, actually 3 categories. He said, you would fit it under the linguist because I know you've been living in Spain. Your Spanish should be perfect. He said, second category is you fit under a minority program. I said, okay. So he said, the third category would be diversified. I said, we hire former military and former police officers. I said, really? He said, yep. He said, I think that you would be a great candidate to go to the FBI Academy. He said, what you do there is on you. But he said, I can get you an application. He said, I think you'd be a good candidate. He said, as a matter of fact, he said, I'm going to request an application to be sent to me from headquarters to hear it to the embassy. And when I get it, I'll look you up and hand you the application. He said, this is what I suggest. Make 3 or 4 or 5 different copies, photocopies of the application, and then start rough drafting the answers because, if you screw up the original, she's like, you're going to have to wait for me to get you a second one, I said, okay. He said, here's his last words. He said, use me as a reference. I said, wow. I mean, that's pretty good. So basically, I don't know whether that's recruiting in place or what, but he, I never would have thought, Rob, I would have gone back to the States and been a cop someplace, like in Arlington, Virginia, or because my wife worked for the DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency at the time. So we would have been living in Washington, so, but that's how I got turned on to the FBI. I graduated, turned in mailed my application like 6 months ahead of time. We transferred back to Washington, in 1979, 78, 79. And, as soon as I got settled, I called FBI headquarters and I said, hey, my name is Ed Mireles. I said, hey, I'm following up on my application. And they go, okay, hold on, let me transfer you to the applicant unit. They transfer you over. I said, hey, Ed Mireles, this date of birth. I said, Social Security number. He said, Mr. Mireles, we have no record of your application. And I'm thinking, I had no idea about welcome to the government. We lost your application. I'm thinking, God damn, So they said, besides that, they said, where do you live? I said, I live in Arlington, Virginia. I said, well, you can't apply through us. You have to apply through the Alexandria office. I said, okay. So is it okay? I have a good, back then we call it a Xerox copy. I have a good Xerox copy of my application. Is that sufficient? They go, yeah, if it's clear, it should be. So I went to the Alexandria office, handed in my application, and they said, thank you. We'll call you later if you meet the qualifications, So, and that started the process. It took about 9 months from the time I got back from overseas to get picked up, Typical background, where have you lived? We need references, banking information. Again, I was as we say in the Marine Corps. I don't know whether they'd say it in the Navy, but I was just a snuffy. I had no nothing. My bank account probably had $58 in it. So, I wasn't moving hundreds of thousands of dollars into my account or anything. So my background went pretty fast. So. Next thing I know, on September 1979, I'm at the FBI Academy.
How was the academy for you?
You know what? It was great on an academic level. It was like college. It really was. I had just graduated from college, the previous 9 months. But from an operational side, being in the Marine Corps, it was like candy. It was like little sissy, I could do the push-ups, I could do the pull-ups, I could do, in the Marine Corps, we had to run 3 miles, so, every morning, so the FBI test was 2 miles, and I could run that backwards, so physically it wasn't a challenge, but academically it was really, not that I'm a dumb person, but I just, had never had experience in legal matters. Okay. And 3 of the 8 tests that you have to pass at the academy, 3 of them were legal exams. Okay. And that was terrifying to me because I'm thinking, oh my God, what if I screw this up? Luckily for me, my roommate was an attorney. Okay. I liked him as long as, we were at the academy, but, since he was an attorney, I said, hey, Paul, after we graduate, you're dead to me. You're an attorney. I can't associate. You're best friends, of course, But, he helped me, he gave me the finer points of legal issues, like stuff like that. So, which helped me pass the legal classes, and I helped him with PT because he was, needless to say, I don't know what, he had a stout body build. But I'll tell you what, though, he was a whip when it came to law, man. He was, real good lawyer, so.
Very nice. I do have one question about going through, did you also go through training with Tommy Norris? So my brother said something to that regards, and Tommy Norris was a SEAL in Vietnam, a Medal of Honor recipient, a total legend. I've met him. Wonderful. He's an idol.
Talk about a small world. It's just one of the luck of the draw. Tommy Norris was my roommate. We had, you had 2 rooms next to each other that shared a bathroom. Tommy Norris was in the other room. So we shared a bathroom and stuff like that. So I didn't know Tommy Norris from, the man in the moon, but, once I got to know him, I found out he was a Navy SEAL, Medal of Honor recipient and stuff like that. He was so freaking funny. And no, I didn't. I tried to be polite. I looked at Tommy, kind of from the side, and I could see he had a disfigured face, and I'm thinking, well, I'm not going to be rude and stare at him. That's not polite, But then I found out that that was a war injury from Vietnam, and I found out he was very lucky to be alive, because if you know the story, he got hit with an AK round, from the side, and blew this part of his face off, including his eye. So I got to talk to him. He said he spent like 7 years in hospitals. They were reconstructing his skull and stuff like that. And Tommy was an evil man, and trying to be polite. So we would share a bathroom. There's 4 men sharing a bathroom. So I'd be in the shower, And you had 2 sinks. You get 2 guys to be shaving, somebody be taking a dump, and somebody showering. Everything was being used. Efficiency, efficiency, efficiency. So I'd be taking a shower, had the shower curtain up like this, and then I would hear Tommy Norris going, "I see you," and I'm looking around like this. And you look over the shower curtain, and he would have his prosthetic eye like this over the shower curtain, looking down at me. He said, "I see you." He did that so many times. It was hilarious, man. And a lot of people didn't know that he had a prosthetic eye. There was one event that happened in the gym. We were wrestling, typical, ground fighting, that type of stuff, and Tommy, he's a wiry little rascal, man, but he's slender and he's about 5'10", something like that. And he came up against this Oakland, California cop. Imagine Oakland. Okay. So he was a rough guy, man. He was muscular. So he, kind of like, if you know what I know, what Bull in the Ring, you have somebody in the middle and he's attacked different places, when it was you. So we kind of had a similar process in the gym. And they would say, "Okay, switch." You switch partners, and you wrestle women, and women would wrestle big guys, women would wrestle small guys. And then Tommy Norris switched over to the Oakland cop, and they're wrestling. And the Oakland cop, he's muscular. So he grabs Tommy by the shoulders and he goes, boom, slams him on the ground, on the mat. Okay. What happened? When Tommy's head or body hit the mat, his eye, the shock popped the eye out of his head, and it goes rolling across the floor, okay, of the gym. And it was hilarious. It was funny. The women in the class go, "Ah, my God, you killed him." And the gym instructors had no idea. The instructors were just about to pass out. They go, "Oh my God, how am I going to write this up? How am I going to explain this guy's eyeball?" And of course, we were his roommates, so we knew. So Tommy gets up, he closes his eyelid like this, so you wouldn't have to look at his empty hole, So he walks over, picks up the eyeball, looks at it, puts it in his mouth, lubricates it, and then sticks it back in his eye socket, and turns around like it's nothing, So. Oh my God, there were so many times like that. It was just hilarious. Getting back to the academy, I mean, the physical side of it was, it's like, I could do it in my sleep, but the academic side, oh my God, I used to sleep on pins and needles, worried that I was going to fail, academically, so. But I managed to get through. We graduated in December of 1979. It was myself, Tommy Norris, Michael G. Rogers, and Tim. We were sent to WFO together. So I served it with Tommy at WFO for about 3 or 4 years, Then I got transferred out, and then Tommy eventually ended up working undercover and going to Idaho or something like that, So and I lost track. Once I left WFO, I lost track of everybody.
What's WFO?
Washington Field Office. Yeah.
Okay. You started in 1979. Tommy also actually had to get the president to allow him to go. So in order to get, because medically clear, they're like, you don't qualify for that. So I think Gerald Ford actually wrote him a letter to be like, you're allowed to go.
He had to get an exemption on 2 levels. Okay. The first was a physical exemption, because he only had one eye. Okay. And think about it. Life is tough with 2 eyes. Imagine just being a gunfighter, being a cop, with one eye. It's tough. The second exemption he had to get was, the maximum hiring age for the FBI at the time was 35 back then. So if you were over 35, you could not apply to be an FBI agent. Because of, and people say, well, that's discrimination. No, it has to do with retirement. Okay. If you have to be 35 when you're hired, that way because mandatory retirement age for agents was 55. Okay. So because of the physical requirements, it's kind of like pilots, you don't want an old pilot that can't see, landing your jet, right? So it's the same thing with agents. You don't want old guys, having to chase down and fight young guys. Okay. So, when Tommy came in, he was 37. Okay. So, he had to get an exemption for his age and for his physical disability, So
you were in the Washington field office for that, and ultimately you ended up in a historic thing in 1986, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So what was the lead into that? So was that, how long were you in the Washington field office for?
Oh, I was there. We got there in 1980, and I was transferred to Miami in 1985. Okay. A lot of stuff happened, I mean, Tommy and I were involved in so much, mayhem, and we're lucky we weren't fired. I mean, seriously, some of the stuff we did out of naivety and some of the stuff we did, we said, hey, you know what, the hell with this. Let's just do it, So, guy, hey, screw this, So I ended up working an undercover operation in Miami in 82. And then I came back to Washington field office in 83, about 18 months later. When I was down working undercovers, when I met, somewhere in the interim there, I got divorced. My first wife, we had a parting of the ways, as I say. So I met a young lady in Miami, and she happened to be an FBI agent. So we got married, and then the Bureau was obligated to give us a common household. She was in Miami, I was in Washington. I wanted her to be transferred to Miami. The Bureau said, no, we're going to transfer you to Miami. So they said, okay. I was in the process of being transferred, and that's how I ended up in Miami, because my wife was living down there. So I got a transfer to Miami in 1985, April of 1985, and I ended up being assigned to the bank robbery squad there. And I'll tell you what, that was one of the luckiest things in the world. I mean, I should probably be called Rabbitfoot the way I have luck, So that's when I met the bank robbery squad. It's a bunch of, it's kind of like the Navy SEALs, man. You go into a new squad, a new unit. You say, hey, the kind of like Obi-Wan Kenobi, you will never meet a more vicious group of scum and villainy. So Navy SEALs, FBI agents, it's the same. Those guys, I mean, you play rough, man. You work hard. You play hard. So, and I was lucky, that to be assigned to that squad. Now, as far as the shooting incident goes, I got there in April of '85, and like in that summer, August or September of '85, we started having a series of armored truck and bank robberies. Now, let me take a step back. Now, Miami, armored trucks and bank robberies aren't unusual, and we had what we called two separate gangs. Okay, we had the Hispanic gang and we had the black gang, and because we didn't know who they were, I mean, that's what we called them. Is, hey, the Hispanic gang hit again, or yeah, the black guys hit again. So we were working those cases. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, we started getting a third group of players come in, and we didn't know who they were or what, but their MO, their modus operandi, their style was way different than the other two gangs. Okay. It was almost either they were very vicious or very amateurish. I don't know how to describe it. Initially, they were amateurish, I think, because the first robbery was in September, October 1985. It was at a Steak and Nail restaurant in South Miami. It was an armored truck delivery, and two guys attacked the guard, and from behind, one of them hit him on the head, knocked him down, took his gun, took his little money bag. They walked him up to the front of the armored truck, I think it was a Wells Fargo truck, and put yourself in his shoes. Okay, you've got a masked man, totally covered, in a face mask, gloves, wearing dark clothing, almost like black utilities, like a utility, the old, 1980s utilities. So they've got you by the throat, march you up to the driver's side of the armored truck. You've got a big honking revolver stuck in your ear like this, and they tell you, hey, tell the driver to open the door. Okay. Well, what do you think standing orders are for drivers? The policy of the company. If you're faced with that situation, what do you think the policy is?
I mean, at this point, I think is do what they say, but I don't know if that was the policy then.
No, the policy then was drive away. So you're here, and your partner drives away. I'm sorry, I'm an evil man. I have to laugh every time I hear that. I say that because imagine you're there and it's no, don't kill me, please. He's stupid. He should have let the door open. He should have opened the door. So they hit him on the head again, knock him to the ground. the guy with the assault rifle, we didn't know what it was. It was 2-3 caliber. Everybody said it was an M16. Nobody knew. So anyway, he opens up on the back of the truck. He fired like 12 or 15 rounds, up 2-3 rounds at the armored truck. It didn't do any good. And they walked away. They probably got like $2,000 in that little money bag. Here's the kicker: they jumped in their getaway car, and even for Miami. That was really odd when they sped out of the parking lot. They took 2 smoke grenades. For some reason, the old saying, "Pop smoke." These guys pop smoke as they're escaping out of the parking lot, and the smoke grenades, filled the parking lot with smoke and stuff. It's like, dudes, you drove out of the smoke like a second after you tossed the grenade. I mean, I don't know. That was just weird. Like I said, even by Miami standards, that was odd. So we knew we had some new players, and so smoke grenades, assault rifles, and then they shoot with an assault rifle at an armored truck, So we said, hey, there's some new people in town. And then you know what? The following week, about 2 or 3 miles away, there's a Winn-Dixie restaurant down there. In the middle of the day, 12 noon, a delivery truck was making a delivery at the Winn-Dixie store. The guard goes in. He comes out with the money bag, okay? So he's walking to the truck, and there was 3 guards assigned to that particular truck. The driver, the courier, and the shotgun, the guy with the shotgun. Okay. As soon as the courier walks out with the money bag, somebody yelled, "Freeze!" And then immediately after the word freeze, they start shooting. Okay. So in front of a grocery store, a big grocery store in a shopping center. Okay. And they fired between the guards and the bad guys. There were 30 shots fired in that area. And the only person that was hit was the initial guard, the first shot. When the guard walked out of the store, somebody shot him with a 12-gauge shotgun in the legs and knocked him down. They wanted to disable him so they could get the bag. And like I said, there were about 30 shots fired in that shopping center. And you know what? I am just amazed that nobody else was shot and killed. Again, we figured, hey, it's got to be the same guys because they had the same description: dark clothing, assault rifle, that type of stuff. But as well as I do, people under stress sometimes see or don't see stuff. I had a description of the guys. There was 3 guys. There was 2 guys. Okay, they were Hispanic, they were white, they were black. I said, the car they were in was green, it was yellow, it was brown. Somebody even said it was a red car. It was a 2-door car. It was a 4-door car. One person said it was like a SUV. Okay, and I said, well, thanks for helping out.
There were people and a vehicle and guns.
Yeah, that's it. It's like, okay, we had no idea what the hell that they were looking at. So. We show up there and it's like mayhem down there. There's a big crime scene and stuff like that. So, and then we went another week and we had another incident. This is the funny part. I'm sorry for being evil. There was a Dulce restaurant in the same area. An armored truck was making a delivery at the restaurant or pickup at the restaurant. Could not find parking space in front of the restaurant. So the driver had to drive around the side of the restaurant into an alleyway or a little side street there. Parked, the courier got out of the truck and goes to the restaurant and then picks up the money. Courier is coming back to where the truck should be. And when the courier is coming back, he said he looked at next to the truck, there was a dumpster, one of those big industrial dumpsters. He said he saw 2 individuals that were waiting behind the dumpster. He said he saw them, and it said, again, they were wearing masks, ski masks, dark clothing, and it looked like they had a rifle or something. He said, as soon as I saw them, I love this guy. He made a preemptive stop. He made a preemptive strike. Okay. He drew his revolver and comes up and starts shooting at these guys behind the dumpster. Okay. Pow, 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 pow. And that spooked them and they ran away. The driver didn't even know he had fired shots because the engine is so loud, So he goes in and pounds on the door and says, hey, call the police. Somebody just tried to rob us. So we respond and we hear the story. I said, this guy made a preemptive strike. And so it could have been some homeless guy, for crying. But anyway, here's the kicker. And I have to say, well, I don't blame him. Remember the guy at the Steak and Ale who was left like this? That was the same guy that saw these people behind the dumpsters. Hey, you fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Right.
I saw these guys, pow, pow, pow.
I was getting to work there.
I had to laugh. It was so funny, man. But anyway, so we, this is all unusual stuff, and I forget the dates for the next robberies, but they started getting more and more violent, because after that, it stopped being, grins and giggles after that. Okay. They said, we're not going to go after the banks because the money is in the courier, the bags. Okay. And I don't know if you know anything about Wells Fargo and money movements and stuff like that, but some of these bags at the time carried $50,000, in cash, okay, or and other negotiable paper. Some of them, some of those bags carry, some of those bags could carry at the time up to 100,000. So they say, hey, that's where the money is. You go into a bank, you might get $2,000 from a teller drawer, or 3,000, whatever. But the big money is in those bags, okay? So they started hitting the armored trucks more, okay? And then they hit one armored truck and they got like $50,000, and then they hit a second armored truck and got $42,000. But see, here's the kicker. Every time they hit an armored truck, they would shoot the courier, okay? We found this out post-incident. At the end of their episodes, they had killed 4 people, guards and people that they stole cars from. Okay. And then neighbors, just weird people, man. I mean, these guys are pretty bad guys. But, one particular guard, he was shot twice. Again, they shot him with a 12-gauge shotgun in the legs. And then his partner goes up behind him. The guy was down on the ground. He shoots him twice in the back. It's like, man, talk about cold-blooded, man. It's like, wow. The guy's down, man. So anyway, so we got a lucky break at one of the robberies when their getaway car. Somebody around the bank saw them, followed the car to a Burger King that was near the area, and they parked the car at the Burger King, and then they got out, switched vehicles, took their money bag, took their weapons, and threw them into a white pickup truck. Okay, so the guy that was following them got too close, and then they noticed him in the mirror, and they jumped out of the truck, and they came out and at the rear of the truck and aimed their weapons at him. And the guy goes, hey, he backed away and left, So that's how we recovered the original getaway car. It was used like 3 or 4 times. And then I understand why people say, well, it was a gold brown. It ended up being a gold Monte Carlo, that was recovered. Now, the owner was a Mr. Brielle who lived in central Miami, so we didn't know anything about Mr. Brielle. So I was tasked to go interview the Brielle family, and I took my friends with me, like 8 cops, So I didn't know what the deal was, so, and then I find out, it was sad. It really was sad. I knocked on the door, and an older woman answered the door, and she immediately says, are you here about my son? Are you here about my son? And I'm thinking, man, what are you saying? He said, my son is missing. Do you have news about my son? And I'm thinking, as soon as she said that, I'm thinking, oh God, this is going to be so bad. So I said, may we come in? I said, hey, we recovered a car that's registered to your husband, Mr. Brielle. He said, but my son, she said, Emilio Brielle, I said, ooh, can you tell me what happened? He had gone target shooting in the Everglades, that's just west of Miami, on the Tamiami Trail. I think it's Calle Ocho. Calle Ocho goes out to Naples. Really, it turns into the Tamiami Trail. She said, my son went target shooting out there in September or August, September of last year, and he disappeared. And she said, we filed a missing person report. We filed a stolen car report. Now, I didn't know that the car had been registered as stolen. So the cops found the paperwork, it was reported stolen. I said, ma'am, I had no information about your son. I'm sorry, But, she says, oh my God, but you recovered the car. And I'm thinking, man, dude, I knew in my heart there was not going to be a happy day for them, So I said, well, thank you so much. She called her husband. Her husband came over and he starts telling me the same thing, I even went back, to talk to the husband, and I said, hey, let's go out to the Everglades and show me where he was shooting, or where, that of. So I gave him the courtesy of, going out there and looking for a missing kid that's been missing 8 months, it's like, So anyway, I did that a couple of days, and then went back and I said, sir, I'm sorry, I have other tasks to do, So March 1st, 1986, they found Emilio Brill, in the Everglades, right at the area of where he had gone shooting. Some hikers were hiking in the area, and they saw some sneakers or something underneath the bush, and they went over and looked at it. It was a skeleton, and they called the cops, and anyway, he was positively identified as Brill. He had a bullet hole in his face, in his head, So, I mean, it's a sad chapter, but that was March 1st. March 12th, there's another gentleman by the name of Jose Collazo. He just happened to be target shooting at the same place where Emilio Brill was. And it's just, weird. And on the day it happened, he said he was shooting in a certain direction. He looked over, he heard somebody coming in, saw a white pickup truck pull up next to him. Two guys got out and they had with guns, and he says, hey, kind of like saying, hey, because there's no range master there. Every man for himself, So he looks like this is, I'm shooting that way. And the other guy says, hey, okay, we're going to shoot that way. He ignores him. He's clinking away with his, I think he had a 22 or something like that. He said after about 10, 15 minutes, he said he felt something behind him, or just sensed something behind him. He turns around, and there's the two guys from the pickup truck. One of them had an assault rifle, and the other one had a revolver. Okay, and they're behind him. They were at a typical, tactical position. One on the left, one on the right. In other words, they weren't next to each other. They formed a triangle. So he said, "Oh man, they had me. The guy with the assault rifle, the guy with the gun." So they said, "Okay, my friend, put the guns down. We're going to take your wallet. Give us your wallet. Give us the keys to your car. We're going to take your guns." She says, "Hey, no problems. Comply. Take it. Take the car. Here's the keys. You might want to check the rear tire." And these are, So he said they took everything. And then the guy with the gun gets close to him, not too close, but close enough. He says, "Turn around and walk towards that lake." You know what? I think any one of us would probably come to the same conclusion that he came from. He said, "Oh shit." He knew, he said, if I go to that lake, man, that's my last walk, man. And he didn't briskly walk towards the lake. He was like dragging his feet, he said. He was like to the point where the guy with the revolver behind him kept sticking it in his back. He said, "Hurry up. Come on, get moving." And he said, at that point in time, he said, "Hey, I got nothing to lose, man, because they're going to kill me. You're highly trained, I know." And the sweet move, when someone's got a gun on your back, this guy, he must have seen some kung fu movies or something, because he said, "Man, I got nothing to lose." So he swings. I don't know whether he swung to the left or swung to the right, but he swung and he got the gun off the center mass, kicked the gun over to the side, and then he grabs the gun, and then he and the band guy are fighting over this gun, revolver. And the revolver goes off. And at some point in time during this exchange, he shot through the left hand. And then somewhere during the exchange, he shot in the upper chest and the shoulder area. And that kind of knocked him back a little bit. And then the third hit that he got, it was a hit right to the face, right here. Okay. And when I do my training classes, I say, "Hey, listen, do you guys believe in luck?" Or and the Bible says, Ecclesiastes 9:11, time and chance. The race is not always to the strong, to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, but time and chance happen to us all. Time and chance. If that round had gone straight back, it would have gone right straight into his brainstem. Okay, but time and chance. The round went at an angle like this. Okay, as opposed to this. Okay, that round went through his upper jaw like this. And it came out on the side of his jaw, the back of his jaw, right below his ear. Okay, kind of like a Tommy Norris hit, except there's eye involved. Okay, and if you're gonna get shot, I mean, the best course of action is don't get shot. Okay, but if you're gonna get shot, I mean, that's a lucky hit. I mean, you think about how much stuff is up here. I mean, your eyes, your nasal passages and your brain and stuff, and he got hit perfectly. I mean, it's like this. So he said, I don't know whether he planned it. I don't think so. He was probably knocked unconscious, from the hit, and he fell down on the ground, and I've been asked this question in training classes and my presentations. Why didn't he shoot him again? I mean, these guys were vicious bastards. Okay. And my theory is bang, 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 bang. This was the 6th round. Okay. So he had a 6 shot. Okay. Yeah. So the reason he didn't get shot again is because the shooter had expended all 6 rounds. I guarantee you that if he had more rounds, he probably would have popped him a couple of times in the back. Okay. But think about it. I mean,
you shot a guy in the face. I think you think they're dead.
I mean, I would think, the guy's dead. I mean, you shoot somebody in the face, especially like close range, he's dead, but he wasn't, So anyway, he kind of like wakes up a few seconds or minutes later. He looks around and he's all alone. These guys took his car, took everything, and they picked their white pickup truck and left. Okay, and this is what I tell people. I said, in my training classes, Mr. Collazo had a choice to make. He said, what do I do now? I'm like a mile from the highway in this dirt trail. Okay, what do I do? I mean, and people don't go there very often. I mean, people go there, but I mean, it's like 1 person a day, 2 people a day. Do you wait for help or do you try to do something to help yourself, And I tell people, I said, hey, it's important for you guys to understand. Collazo had a strong will to live. And I said, you need to take lessons from here. He had a strong will to live. And guess what, Mr. Collazo, what his profession was? He wasn't the highly trained professional like you and me. I mean, I was trained at Quantico. You were trained at Coronado Island, It's like we're professionals, we're highly trained. Collazo was a salesman. He sold mattresses. That's it. Okay, but this guy had a spark in his heart and a spark in his head. I want to live, okay? And he but he kind of started crawling, back to the highway. And he said he tried to stand up and he said he staggered and he fell and he kept crawling because he knew he had to get to the highway to survive. And when he got to the highway, that's when, it's a pretty active highway, lots of traffic. When he got to the highway, people saw him, I can just imagine what he looked like. He probably looked like a swamp monster coming out of the Everglades, all covered in mud and dirt and blood, it's like, oh, geez. But somebody stopped to help him, and they threw him in his car and they drove him to a nearby convenience store about a mile away. And then they called the cops from there. And then the ambulance came over to rescue him, and he ended up in Central Miami Hospital. I forget what it's called. I think it was Baptist Hospital. So anyway, we had our first live witness, right? Because up until then, we had no idea who these guys were. And he told us, okay, it was 2 white males. They were about 6 feet, 6'1", 200 pounds, slender. He said they were fit, not muscular fit, but fit, like they did a lot of aerobics or running, not so much weightlifting, And he said, in his opinion, they had a military bearing, so they looked like they had prior military service or something. And he said they were pretty vicious. They just shot him in cold blood. And he described the white pickup truck, but he didn't get the license plate on the truck, but we got the license plate from his car. So we found out about this, and we went. The FBI, in addition to the police, and interviewed him. The police at the time didn't put 2 and 2 together with the bank robberies. The FBI, because of Emilio Brielle being shot out in the Everglades, this guy was shot exactly like Brielle. So we said, hey, you know what? This is probably the robbers, the bank robbers. They're out there shopping for another car. So we went out and interviewed him, and we got a lot of information from him. The PD, did the old police sketch. We got some workable sketches. That happened on March 12th. Like within 7 days, Mr. Collazo's car was used in a robbery. Okay, and we know 100% with 100% certainty that his car was used in a robbery because the car was seen was part of a bank robbery at a bank that had been robbed once before by these guys. And there was a U.S. Customs inspector going to work. He stopped at the bank to cash his check. So he said, hey, he's looking for a parking space. He sees two guys wearing camouflage clothing running out of a bank at port arms with long weapons. He said, maybe I should wait a little bit before I cash my check, So he said he hunkered down watching these guys, and they backed the black car up, and the rear license plate was right to him, into his face, So he wrote it down, and he verified that it was Collazo's tag, So we knew we were on the right track for the bank robbers, So that linked the stolen car and the bank robbing activity. That was on March, I think it was March 18th. I think it was. So that takes us up to the like the springboard, I guess you'd call it. The shooting happened on April 11th, so it happened about 2 or 3 weeks later. It's called intuitive policing. Okay, our supervisor said, hey, he talked to the case agent, Ben Grogan. He said, Ben, they were actually at the range on Thursday. He said, hey, Ben, I said, hey, what do you think about setting up surveillance tomorrow? Tomorrow being Friday. He said, sure, Gordon. He said, what's up? What do you know? He said, man, I said, I don't know. I really don't know anything, Ben. But he said, I just have a hunch. He said, the last time these guys hit was 3 weeks ago. The last time they hit, they only got $8,000. He said their previous hits were $45,000, $50,000. And then they would wait, several weeks before they hit again. He said, number one, he said, they got a small stash. Tomorrow is payday Friday. It's been 3 weeks. He said, I think they're due. I think they're due to hit. So he said, I think we should set up a surveillance in the southwest part of town, be in the area to respond in case anything happens. Because our office from where these guys were robbing was like 30 miles away. If I'm sitting at my desk and we get a bank robbery call, it's going to take me, even with licensed sirens, a 30-mile drive through downtown traffic, man. It's like 20, 30 minutes if I'm lucky. So he said, hey, we'll be in the area in case something happens. And then, we'll just go from there. And he said, Gordon, he said, man, I'll take any help you can get me, So we set up a surveillance, I was in the office and on the squad when they called, hey, let's plan on having a surveillance. Anybody who's available, come out to help tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. So we set it up. It ended up being 11 guys from the squad and 3 guys from the Homestead little satellite office there, so it was 14 agents, and we got all the information we had. We had a white pickup truck, no tag, had Collazo's black Monte Carlo with the tag, NTJ891, and we had the composite photos of the guys, So the idea was to spread out in the South Miami area where they had hit banks before. And we would be, if not lucky, we would be at least close. We'd be 2 blocks away or 5 blocks away if a robbery call came in. Being 5 blocks away as opposed to 30 miles away is a big difference.
Big difference.
There's an old saying, hey, when seconds count, the police are always minutes away, So we were set up, and it was just, I gotta be honest with you. I showed up for the game, but I said, hey, you know what though? We're going to waste a day, but it's Friday, it's a good day, it's sunny and stuff, thinking about what I'm going to do on the weekend and stuff like that. So I was a bit complacent. I'll be honest with you. And, but I was set. I had my shotgun, had my body armor, had my raid jacket, had my sidearm, extra ammo. Everything was good, but I said, okay, we're going to sit here between, 9 and 2. So there goes my day, So, my partner and I, John Hanlon, we were assigned to a spot in the northernmost area of the surveillance area. So we take our position, and everybody's joking around, and there's a total of 14 guys, and we had like 4 spots that we set up, little centers. And the idea was to surveil those banks and then do like roving patrols in your area, for other banks or like Home Depot, armored trucks make stops at Home Depots and stuff like that too,
Right.
So, we were set, I had my shotgun, we're ready to go. And, 3 things happened. Number one of the agents at my location went in to talk to the bank, and they said, no, we don't want to talk to you. You don't look like an FBI agent. So he said, okay, fine. So he leaves. They called the office verifying that there was an FBI agent by that name. And they said, yeah. So they call on the radio, said, hey, the manager wants to talk to you now. So he goes to the bank and he goes off the air. And in one of the spots at 136th Street, an agent by the name of Terry said, hey, Gordon, he said, I need to go make a head call, so I'm going to be I'm going to be what we call out of pocket. So he leaves to go to find the best restroom. And then the spot south of him, 148th, another agent by the name of Bob said, hey, guys, and I got to go find a boys' room because I got to go, So 3 agents, legitimate reasons. As soon as Steve goes, hey, I'm 10-7 at the bank, like within 5 seconds, Ben Grogan calls on the radio, says, attention all units, we're behind a black Monte Carlo, Florida tag NTJ 891. We're headed northbound on US 1. And imagine my surprise. I was like, it's beyond surprise. It's like, holy Jesus, you got to be kidding me. These guys are blatant. I mean, they're in a stolen car. The tag has been blasted all over Bolo, be on the lookout. And they're in that same car. I mean, they're just like, hey, in your face, So we started a real short surveillance. We followed them. They were going northbound on US 1. They made a right turn on the 117th, started going back southbound. And at some point in time, we were trying to get them in the right spot, and we didn't want to do a car stop like in the middle of a 3-lane highway. That would be crazy. So they did us a favor. They went on off the highway, and they were back in the residential areas, which is where when we decided to do the car stop. From the time Agent Ben Grogan said, attention all units, he said, felony car stop. Let's do it. It was 3 minutes. Okay. So we had 3 minutes to formulate a plan and to try to bring the posse together into one spot. Okay. So some of our units were, we had an area about 5 miles long that we were surveilling. I was at the northernmost part, and then the other units were, the southernmost location was 5 miles from me. So we were trying to rally all the troops to come to the center. Okay. And that took time, even with licensed sirens, it takes time. So 3 minutes, formulate a plan, and we decided to do a car stop. Now people say, well, you have poor planning, this, that, whatever,
But life.
People don't understand. There's two types of car stops, and people say, well, high risk, low risk. No, I said, no, forget that crap, There's a compliant car stop, and then there's a non-compliant car stop. That's it. I mean, there's nothing else. All car stops are high risk. I don't give a crap if you're stopping an old lady, you don't know whether she's got a Derringer in her hand or something, Those old ladies are mean, So compliant, non-compliant. As soon as Ben hit the lights and the siren, these guys jumped up and looked behind them, and then Ben starts to try to pass them to block them. It turned into a non-compliant stop. We started having bumper cars going southbound on 82nd Avenue for about 2 blocks. We're literally ramming cars, ramming each other like this until we lost control of our car. John hit a cement wall. They lost control of their car because Manauzi had rammed them, and they kind of spun out with their nose.
So they pulled over. You got called on the radio. How far out were you when they became non-compliant? Because you didn't do this stop. You were there then.
I was.
You were there at the stop. Okay.
Yeah, I was the second. I was the second car on the stop.
Okay.
My partner, John Hanlon. It was Ben Grogan was first. We were second, and then Manaus. So when Ben pulls off to the left to try to block him, we were right behind him at that point. So we were involved in bumper cars crashing and crashing and crashing. And something happened. I don't know what. We lost control somehow, and John hits a brick wall, a cement wall on the right side of the street.
So you're in the passenger seat?
I'm on the passenger seat.
And
right?
He's driving.
So John's driving, okay. And I didn't see this, but I was told later, but from the crime scene, that the car spun around, the bad guy car spun around to their left, and Manauzi had already ran him. He said, hey, if they make a full U-turn, they're going to be free and clear to go back north. So he decided to ram them a second time, and he rammed them hard. And he pushes them into a civilian car in a driveway, up against a civilian car, up against a tree. And then Manauzi was the third side of the box. So they were pinned in between two cars and a tree. And that was the car stop. Okay. And it was set. I mean, it was set to go. They, Gordon McNeil arrives like a few seconds later, and Ben Grogan had been right behind him. They jump out. I'm shaking off the effects of the crash, and I'm, trying to figure out which way is up, and I looked and I saw where the cars were, and I start coming out of the car. I saw Ben Grogan and Gordon McNeil jump out of their cars, and I hear, FBI, police, put your hands up. And they, remember the movie Gladiator, where the first scene in the movie, when they're looking at how the Germanians are going to respond, and then their courier comes back without a head. They say no. Well, when we told the bank robbers to come out with their hands up, they said no, because they responded with rifle fire. I mean, right then. I mean, it wasn't even like, hey, who are you? Hey, don't hurt us. No, automatically went the gunfire. Okay. And what started there was, like a 3 to 4 minute gunfight between a total of 10 men in an area, about the size of a half-court basketball court. Okay.
So as you're explaining this, let me just say on the side, I have imagery of this just because a lot has been done with it. So I have like a model of where the cars are parked in the trees and where your car is parked. So I'm looking at this in real time, and maybe you can attach some of this to the videos just to have a better understanding of it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at images that you.
Okay. Well, so you have an overhead view, a diagram of the shooting. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. There, how the bad guy car is pinned between all these vehicles. So my thought was to run across the street to reinforce the troops. Because I had a 12 gauge shotgun. And I actually paced it off, after the incident. I was 55 yards away from a jumble of cars. And plus there were agents and bad guys in the same area. I wasn't going to use a shotgun at 50 yards when you got friendlies on both sides, So I figured I had to get close, close and personal, I guess. And I ran across the street. It's funny how training kicks in, and everything starts going. I was perfectly calm. I was in control, and things slowed down. They call that tachypsychia, is slowing down of time. Your mental processes. Some people experience a speeding up of time. I didn't know that, but for me, it's always been slowing down. But it was slow, almost like slow motion, and I could see things. And I saw Ben Grogan and Jerry Dove bring their guns up like this. That's about how fast it looked. Time had slowed down. I mean, at least in my perception. And I'm running across, and I'm calm. But there was this thing going around, and I'm sure you've experienced it. When bullets go flying by you, they make a certain noise.
The cracks, the cracks are scary.
Yeah. So that was a little bit concerning, because
I guess they're probably subsonic, so it's not cracks, but it's different.
Well, no, I mean the assault rifle was.
Assault. Yeah. So those are cracks.
Okay, he was shooting 223 rounds.
Yeah. So those are cracks. Those are terrible.
Yeah, it's like
I'm more familiar with that than subsonic.
I knew what they were, but I'm thinking
those are bad.
You need to get the cover,
It's a bad sound.
So I come around the side of Gordon McNeil's car like this because I saw him by himself on the left side of the line. So there were going to be 3 agents on the right side. I figured the weakest spot would be the one agent by himself. So I decided to go to help reinforce Gordon McNeil on the left. And I was trying to get to his left side. And then something very unusual happened to me. I'm looking forward like this. And the next thing I know, I'm looking straight up at the sky. I'm looking at the blue sky. And I'm thinking, at that point, I stopped being calm, and it was just totally not, it's not like the TV just went, you didn't see any picture, I could still see and hear a little bit, but I just couldn't figure out what happened, so I'm thinking, how the hell did I get on the ground, and I'm still looking at Gordon McNeil, and I see Gordon McNeil, he's still doing this, like, bang, bang. Everything's still slow, So, and my hearing was totally shot. I mean, not to put it up, my hearing was totally screwed up. Yeah.
Was it your hearing that was shot? Yeah.
So,
You
and I'm
just couldn't
thinking,
hear.
I got the shotgun in my right hand like this, okay? And I remember when I came around the back of the car, Gordon McNeil's car, I had the shotgun at a ready position, not port arms, but in a ready. And I came around the side of the car, and I had the muzzle of my weapon pointed at Gordon McNeil's back, and I had a round in the chamber. Safety was off, and I had my finger on the trigger, and I thought, oh shoot, safety. I brought the muzzle of the weapon up like this, port arms, and see where my arm is. I got hit with a 223 round right here. Okay. I mean, you could do that a million times and not have the same result. And it was just, talk about a miracle of miracles. Okay. But see, I found that out after the fact. Okay. At that point in time, I had no clue what the hell was going on. Okay. And I've got the shotgun here, and I'm looking, I'm scanning, and I'm trying to use my left arm to push myself up off the ground. Another thing that happened, I was just all suddenly tired, and all of a sudden, like, God, what the hell? It's like I ran 5 miles, all of a sudden I was, I guess it's all the energy, seeping out of you, So, and I can see Gordon McNeil shooting, and I'm thinking, get up, you son of a bitch, you got to help Gordon, and I just couldn't do it. It just wasn't working, And then I see Gordon do a very peculiar movement. Gordon's got his gun up on the car. He's got it, he's cupped his revolver in his hand like this. And then I see Gordon do this. He looks back at his hand, and I'm on the ground behind him. I'm thinking, what the hell is Gordon doing? As it was one of those movies, follow me. No. And then I realized that when he brought it back, he was like, he's actually looking at his hand, examining his hand like this, brings it back, cups it back down, brings it back on the hood of the car, and fires 2 more shots. And then it dawned on me, I said, holy cow, Gordon got shot. He got shot in the hand, and it was really, he was hit with a 223 round right between the fingers like this. Okay. When he was aiming the gun, talk about luck. If that round had not hit his hand, it probably would have hit him in the shoulder or in the side of the face. But anyway, so he fires his last 2 rounds, and he circles around to the left, and he goes over behind cover to reload. Okay. And I'm still there by myself. I have no idea what's going on. Okay. And I'm pushing, and gunfire is still going, over my head and stuff. So I'll try to keep this short, but it's a funny thing.
No, this is, go.
I think this is funny because this goes back to training, and I don't know whether it was Marine Corps training or FBI training. I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I stuck the stock of the shotgun underneath my armpit like this for support, and I had my finger on the trigger. And you know how tanks work. You have a tank, the barrel of the tank is like this. When the turret turns, the muzzle turns.
Right.
So you're looking, and if you're going to make this work, you got to, the muzzle goes this way. The tank commander goes with wherever the gun's pointing, and that's what I was doing. If the muzzle of my shotgun was here, my eyes were here, and I started scanning for threats, and I scanned in a methodical pattern underneath, over the hoods and trunks of the cars, like this, and I'm scanning, just constantly scanning. The old saying, keep your head on a swivel. I was scanning, but I wasn't aiming my gun this way and looking looking the opposite way. Everything was connected. Everything was connected. So, and I'm thinking, why? Where the hell is everybody? That's I really thought that. And then as I'm scanning to the right, I see movement to my left, and I'm thinking, what the hell was that? And I go like this, and I thought it was a threat. And then I see nothing, and I'm thinking, okay. So I started scanning back to the left. I'm back to the right, and then all of a sudden I see movement again. I'm thinking, what the hell was that? And then I said, God, it's scary. It was freaking me out, So I said, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to stay looking like this, kind of looking to the left. And sure enough, there was something weird going on. I see this spray, and I saw it's red liquid, squirting from this part of my body, squirting past my shoes. Okay. And it took me a couple of seconds to realize, holy shit, that's that's blood. I said, is there arterial bleeding? My every time my heart pumps, and I'm going, and I'm thinking, oh shit! You know who I thought of? You'll love this. Guess who I thought of? Tommy Norris. I swear to God, I thought of Tommy Norris. Went up there. I said, oh my God, I've been shot in the head. I'm going to look like Tommy Norris.
I see you.
That thought came to me because, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I've been shot in the head, and then I actually put, my left arm wasn't working for some reason. I still don't know why.
I wonder why.
I put my shotgun across my chest like this, and it took a lot of willpower to let go of the pistol grip, And I was like, I got to put the gun down, And then I took my hand like this, and I expected to feel a bunch of mush up here. Okay, but when I felt my skull, I said, that's just intact blood. I went like this, blood. I did this a couple of times, and unbeknownst to me, and God has mercy on drunks and babies. I guess I was somewhere around drunk, But unbeknownst to me, when I did this, I was actually compressing the flap of skin that was flopping around. I actually compressed it over the wound. So it stopped spraying, but it was still bleeding, but the spray scared the crap out of me. So I said, okay. I said, my head's intact. I said, it's no big deal, So, and then I just said, I said, man, I got to look at my arm. When I looked down at my arm, that's the first time I realized I'd been shot. And this from training. A lot of people and the uninitiated or the inexperienced don't realize, hey, when people are shot or injured, a lot of times they don't know they've been hurt. Okay,
Not right away. Not right away.
Not right away. No, eventually it'll hit you. But
you'll figure it out.
Yeah, but I was like stunned. I said, "Holy cow!" Because my left arm had been almost completely ripped off my body. Okay. I mean, it was totally shattered. I mean, it looked like roadkill. It was just like meat and shit was everywhere, And I actually reached down with my good hand and I picked up my left hand and I put it in front of me and I shook it. And I said, holy shit, it's attached to me. I said, that's my arm, And then I said, okay. So I said, it's my arm. I said, intrusive thought. I said, you're going to have your arm amputated today. Like Tommy Norris. Oh my God, I'm going to look like Tommy Norris. You're going to have your arm amputated today. And I threw my arm back on the ground and grabbed the shotgun and started scanning, for threats. It's just bizarre, But the thing went on so long, that, and my hearing started coming back because initially when I took the hit up here, just I guess the supersonic crack or something, it just ruined my hearing,
or getting shot in the head, either way,
Yeah, I mean that has some
might have an effect.
But eventually, I heard the shooting went from my 12 to my 1 to my 2 to my 3, and I'm thinking, hey, I don't know nothing's going on here. I said, stuff's happening over to my right, So I started crawling on my back, and trying to get around Gordon McNeil's car to where I could see on the other side of the car. I didn't want to get up, number one. Number two, I couldn't get up because I was disoriented and stuff. So when I went around the back of the car, that was absolutely devastating because I saw Ben Grogan and Jerry Dubb were on the ground. And I looked behind me. I mean, behind Gordon McNeil's car, Gordon was on the ground.
Did that fully hit you at the time, or were you still in such a state? Did that... You were going through a slow motion thing. You just realized that you were shot. You realized it was bad. You realized that, all these things were did them being down, did you understand what that meant?
Oh, no, I did understand, but you know what though? I still held out hope because they weren't moving, but I'm thinking, okay, I'm hoping that they're still alive,
right.
And that was the motivating factor. Okay. I need to do something so that we can get aid. Okay.
You said, get up, you son of a bitch.
Yeah,
and then you got up.
It's nice, but when I finally got a full view of their car and it hit me, I'm thinking, oh shit! I said, who the hell is in the car? And I'm thinking, the bad guys are in the car. And I assessed the situation, and it became obvious to me that they were trying to escape in the FBI car. Okay, now here's the problem: if the only way to move that car was back. Okay, if they moved that car back, they would run over Jerry Dubb, Ben Grogan, and John Hanlon. I said, there's no freaking way they're going to move that car. Okay. So I said, you know what? I got to do something. I've got the heavy weapon. I mean, for us, it's a heavy weapon, I said, I've got to do something, and I'm trying to figure out how to use this this shotgun with one hand, and it just kind of came to me. It was like what they say, it's an epiphany. I looked at the bumper of the car, and I'm thinking, okay, it's got a lip on here. I said, I can't use my left arm, so I said, I'll just put the fore end, the stock on the lip, and I've got the stock back here. I said, this will be my left arm. It wasn't perfect, okay. The bumper was here, but my eyes were up here. Okay. So when I put the shotgun on the bumper, the sights were here. So I had to squash down, I had to put my head down to where the sights were to be able to use the bumper as my second arm. In other words, it wasn't perfectly lined up. The bumper's up here at my eyesight. It would have been perfect, In life isn't perfect, So I had squashed down like this, because you know what? A weapon is a tool. If you're trying to make the tool work, you got to make it work properly. And to make that weapon work properly, you got to work the sights, front sight, rear sight, you know what I'm saying. But, and I'm thinking, okay, I had to squash down and I had to find the right side, and that's when I started, using it's just basically firing rounds into the passenger compartment of the car to keep them from moving the car. Okay. And people say, well, how did you rack? It was just one of those miracles. It just kind of came to me. When I fired the shotgun, the recoil just automatically, set me back. And I was like on the side of the car. And when it pushed me back, I was in a sitting position. I had to go back. In other words, I just kind of naturally rolled back with my back against the bumper, had the shotgun in my hand, let it slide through my hand and between my legs. And I pinched it with my legs. Then I put my hand up in the foregrip, racked the gun, came back down to the pistol grip, brought it up, and then turned around, put the weapon on the bumper again. And I fired 4 rounds in that configuration. And that was enough to stop them from moving the car. Okay. So mission accomplished. Okay. When I fired all my rounds, I was empty. I turned around and I looked to my right across the street, Ben Grogan, Gil Arantia, and Ron Reisner. I took my hand out. I said, it's okay. Come on over, and they're yelling, stay down, and I'm thinking, stay down? What are you talking about? The gunfight's over, guys, and then it hit me. I think, oh shit, they don't know it's over because they don't know where the bad guys are. I mean, this is still a hot zone. And you know what? I looked north and I looked south and I was thinking, oh, you know what? As thrilling as it was, I said, we are going to die, because I looked north and there's like 20, 30 fire engines and ambulances. I looked south, there's another 10, 20, 15 fire engine and ambulances, and they were all stopped about 100 yards, from my position. And I'm thinking, nobody is...
They're not going to come to you right now.
Nobody's coming in. The cavalry is stopped, guys, because they think it's a hot zone. They think it's a still an active zone. And unbeknownst to me, when I took my attention off the threat, that's when one of the witnesses across the street said that the driver of the in Ben Grogan's car gets out of the car and walks to within 8 feet of my position and fires with his left hand, fires down at my position like this, I didn't hear the gunshots because my hearing was toast. The witness saw it. Gordon McNeil, who was behind his car, but it kind of been a little bit in the middle of the street, said he couldn't see, but he heard the gunshots and he saw the street, the macadam, the tar on the street sprinkle up like with the gun, where the bullets hit and threw up, fragments of the road. But I never saw it. The guys across the street never saw it, but, it's just an interesting little sidebar, So, and according to the witness, the driver, who ended up being Platt, goes back to the driver's seat in Ben's car and jumps in, and they're proceeding again to try to do something with the steering column and stuff like that. And I'm going through a whole, and I won't belabor the point, but I went through a whole thought process. I'm thinking, oh, there's denial, anger, bargaining, acceptance.
Right.
I went through all of those steps in like a second. I mean, I bargained. I talked to God, and God said, hey, you know what? I don't think you're a good bet, man. Because sometimes God says no.
You got some work to do.
Yeah, you know what? And I'm thinking to myself, Ecclesiastes 9:11.
You said it earlier, yeah.
Okay, now do you know what Ecclesiastes 9:12 says? If I'm going to die, I'm going to take those fuckers with me. It's in the Bible. I swear to God. Look it up. So I'm thinking that. I said, you know what, though? If I'm going to die, and I thought I was going to die, and because I could feel the strength. I was trying to stay awake, and it was harder and harder for me to stay awake and concentrate, because I would be doing this. I would I'm looking, I'm scanning, and then I'd jerk up, kind of like when you're driving drunk. It's like, and I was just trying to shaking my head, trying to stay awake, and I knew right then that I was dying. Okay, I said, hey, this is it, man. I said, if I'm going to die, I'm going to take those two guys with me. There was still hope of survival. I said, hey, if I stand up in the middle of this gunfight, everybody north and south of me, all those fire engines are going to know, hey, this guy's standing up and must be okay. So that was part of the motivation. I mean, I still wanted to survive, but I wanted everybody else to survive. So I kind of rolled over on my side, on my knees, and when I stood up, I drew my revolver and I came up and I started moving towards the car, and as I'm moving, I'm firing. And I wasn't like firing, like walking, I would take 2 steps, set my position, find the front and rear sights and fire. And then I'd take 2 steps forward, find the sights, fire, 2 steps forward. My thought is like, it was a very methodical process. 2 steps, fire, 2 steps, fire, 2 steps, fire, but every time I stopped, I would set my position. Okay. The witnesses said that the individual with the red jacket, I was wearing a windbreaker, like a wine-colored windbreaker. They said, hey, he actually, people say he charged the subjects. The other witnesses said he kind of like fast walked, shuffled towards the bad guy. To me, it was very slow and methodical. Anyway, I closed the distance. You know how it is. You close with the enemy and take care of it. I got as close to the car door, and I had fired all 6 shots, and 5 of the shots hit the bad guys. 1 of the shots missed, and I had the last shot, and I was right at the window, and I shot the driver. Shot him in the upper chest. Hit him in the spinal cord up here at his neck. So he was paralyzed from there. And at that point in time, the 2 agents across the street came up to reinforce me. Okay, because they said, hey, we know where the bad guys are now. So 1 to my left and 1 to my right. Ron was to my right. He said, hey, Ed, it's okay. Put your gun away. It's over. And I tell people, I said, how many times do you go through training? I took my revolver and I one-handed went like this, put the revolver in my holster, and I snapped my holster. And then I stumbled back and almost to the same spot where I started, behind the car, and I collapsed. I was done. I mean, I had no more. I couldn't stay awake anymore. So blood loss. So and that's where the medics came in. It's like, pretty much over. Unfortunately, Ben Grogan and Jerry Dove didn't make it. Out of 10 participants, 2 bad guys, 8 agents. 2 bad guys died, 2 agents died. That leaves 6 participants. Out of those 6 participants, 5 of us were wounded. Okay, so only 1 agent, 1 person out of 10 was not injured. Okay, so it was pretty intense gunfight, so. And then the rest is history. It took me 2 weeks in the hospital, intensive care. They said initially, we're going to have to amputate your arm. And I'm thinking, I kind of was having a thought process about that, kind of accept it. And then they came back and said, hey, we may be able to save it, but don't count on it. We don't want to give you false hope if you have to amputate. But they said, we're going to make an effort to try to save your arm. I said, okay, it works for me, man. Otherwise, you'd be calling me lefty. And that's pretty much it. The rest of it was just recovery, recuperating. It took me, I was on light duty for 27 months. I was on hard, recuperating duty for like 14 months at home. With my arm was totally shattered. It was in a big balloon cast and stuff like that. I had 5 or 6 major surgeries, and I had like 5 minor surgeries for the arm to get it to where it isn't today. And I have about 50% usage of the arm. Which is better than nothing. So
it's better than nothing.
Yeah, no kidding. And that's it.
A lot has been written about this. You've wrote a lot about this. Based on your lessons, there's a bunch of lessons learned that the Bureau gets taught, kind of forever, that law enforcement get taught, that a lot of people use this as a use case for a lot of different things. All of that being said, what are really the learning points for you as a person, rather than the tactical ones? Like the tactical ones, like, oh, we should use these, like, the types of firearms you use, the types of tactics going with that. But you as a person, what did you learn from this?
Okay, that's a very good question. That's the first time I've ever been asked that question clearly and directly. This is what I would tell people. I said, number one, be a good person. Okay. And I don't mean, you have to be Superman or Batman. Just be a good, decent person. Okay. Have your affairs in order. I mean, and I don't mean affairs like romantic affairs, but I mean, have your life in order. I mean, if you have a wife and kids, or if you have, your parents and stuff, have your affairs in order. Okay. I mean, don't leave stuff to chance. Okay. The other part of it is, you should prepare to make every day your last day. I mean, that's my thought. Okay. If I die today, am I going to die happy? Not that I want to die, but am I going to say, okay, everything is in order. Okay. My life is in order. I tell my loved ones, I love them. I show them love. Okay. I try to be a good provider. I try to love and care for the people I love, and my friends, try to be a good friend to people, and the strangers, be courteous. Okay. Because you never know. And I've always been told to say, hey, Ed, you never know when that person that you meet, that person needs help, or you turn your back on them, or you ignore them, or you call them names. You never know when you're being tested. You never know if that's an angel. Okay. Coming down here to see how you'll react to this need, or a person asking for assistance, or a handicapped person, looking for some help. Okay. So I always try to live life in the light, in the positive and good. Okay. And if I was to go today, I think I would go, with a clear conscience. It's like, hey, I'm not, and please don't get it wrong. I'm not a saint by any stretch of the imagination. Okay. I've led a checkered life, but, at least I can say, hey, listen, I did the best I could. I loved I loved my family, loved my friends. I did the best I could, and my affairs are relatively in order. Okay. And, I don't mind going. Now, if you have, unfinished business, somewhere like a family member or a friend or a relationship or something like that, then, I hope you understand what I'm saying. That's kind of the negative side. But on the positive side, if you have everything in order, it's like you're positive with people, you could go anytime, so hey, no problem, I don't want to preach to the choir, but it's always, you need some spiritual food. Okay. You got to have something you believe in, it's got to be more than just you. Okay. It's your family, and, and I don't, and again, I'm not a priest or a preacher or a rabbi or anything else, but, you just have to live life in the positive. That's the best I can do for you.
So everything that you said there was full of humility, was full of like great answers. Did you ever have dark moments from this?
The hardest part for me was, the first 6, 7, 8 years, on the anniversary, it was tough for me because I've always, it was PTSD. And I found that out, I think it was the 7-year anniversary. I always kept asking myself, what could I have done better, or what could I have done differently to save Ben Grogan and Jerry Dove? Okay. And that ate my soul, ate my heart, ate my mind. And it wasn't until everybody kept saying, Ed, you did everything you could. Okay. Everybody said that except one person, me. It wasn't until the 7th year that I said, you know what? I think Ben and Jerry, who are looking down on me from heaven, I think they would agree that I did everything humanly possible to try to help them. And I think if they agree, then I'm happy. Okay. And you know what? It was like a poof. the PTSD disappeared. It was like, holy cow, because I kept nagging this question. And it's like, I could have done something better. I could have done something different. And when I answered my own question, no, Ed, you did everything humanly possible. And the results are the results. It was like I was cured. I mean, the PTSD disappeared,
Was there any particular catalyst in that 7th year why you came to that conclusion? Did you do anything, or was it just a moment of clarity?
It was just, I had to decide, I guess, mentally, I had to decide that what I did was acceptable, because everybody kept saying, hey, Ed, you're a legend. Hey, you know what? That doesn't mean crap to me. What could I have done better for Ben and Jerry? Okay. That's always been my thought, and it nagged me. And, it, not to diminish their memory, but it doesn't bother me the way it did the first 5, 6, 7 years, because I had to answer that question and I had to accept it. Everybody else accepted it and said, hey, they always said positive things and so on and so forth. But I was the one that had to finally accept it and to leave it myself, so, and it was just, I don't know, maybe it was just time, so I don't know.
So I have been on missions where I lost my friends. Never something where I got hurt. Like, I was never hurt and I never got shot or anything like that. But I lost my friends. And I think some of our tactical decisions and my tactical decisions may have led to that. So these are things that I have also contemplated of what I could have done. Yeah. And at this point, the answer is it doesn't matter. I can't take that back. I can only lead my life in a different way now.
Exactly.
But all of that being said, you sound like Batman, basically, of what you described. And it's with humility. It's just I didn't know that I was shot. And I kept, get up, you son of a bitch. And then I did that. And then I started emptying my gun. And I thought I was doing this. And then I did this. And then it's to hear your story, it sounds impossible. And it sounds like something that books and movies are written about.
What's that old saying? God is my co-pilot or something like that. Again, I don't want to get all, mushy but you know what? I've always, my whole family, has always been, religious. My mom took us to church every Sunday, until I was 18. And then I joined the Marine Corps and I never went to church again, I'm joking, but talk about going to the dark side. You join the military. It's like, oh my God. But I've always tried to live my life, like I said, in a positive, in a positive manner, in a good manner, but the thought process there is, always, if you try to do good, God can call any one of us at any time, you just have to hope that the balance, the ledger is, you've got a lot going for you as opposed to, a deficit, so it's just an upbringing, we were taught to be family, church, God, country, family, God, country, family, that's the way it's always been, but something else that I was told, when this was going on, say, hey, listen, you have to take life for what it is. Okay. You were spared for a reason. Okay. Ben Grogan and Jerry Dubb were killed. And I said, you cannot let your life be negative because they died. Okay. And there's no doubt in my mind that, their actions, helped me, regroup and help me flank. I pull the flanking maneuver on the bad guys. Their actions gave me time to regroup. Okay. And they said, hey, the best way that you can honor Ben Grogan and Jerry Dubb is to live your life to the fullest. Okay. Live life for them. Okay. And I'm thinking, well, that is so correct. I don't take any credit, because Ben Grogan and Jerry Dubb are the real heroes, I was told, hey, listen, the best way to honor them is to live your life to the fullest. And I'm thinking that's what I've tried to do, since then.
I think that's a good enough spot to end it for us. The only thing I will say is that you finished that and continue to chase later on. So the fact that you went to Afghanistan after that, it's 20 years later, you're like, I want to get back in the fight, is only a testament to your character and who you are. So,
Rob, I've been so blessed, and I'll be the first one to admit it, man. I've been so blessed, and I thank God for that. So,
thank you so much for your time. This has been incredible.
My pleasure. Success on your program. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
That's it for this episode. If you want to check out more from the podcast, head to zeroeyes.com/Nobel where you can see show notes, read more about our guests, and suggest guests or topics of your own. Until next time, stay in the fight. Don't ring the bell.